So if this is what you guys decided to show about Miss Franklin's life, I would really love to know what we didn't get to see. Tyra here with another struggle review, here to discuss Genius, the Aretha series. Now, the Genius series is an anthology show where each season we get the story, the life of, innovators throughout history. We have had Picasso, Albert Einstein, and now Miss Aretha Franklin, of course, for her contributions to music throughout history. Now, what did I think about this series? And do I think you should watch it? Before we get into that, I need you guys to drop down and subscribe to my channel and like this video. I'm going to give you guys a moment to do that, and then we're going to come back and discuss all things Miss Franklin. Hopefully subscribe to see more of me. Let's get into this series. Now, I only watched this series because I saw that the family, didn't feel like that this series gave Miss Aretha the respect she deserves. They didn't feel like it maybe displayed her in the best light, and they didn't feel comfortable with it because they weren't consulted with for the film. Now, Clive Davis is, involved in this movie along with many others. And of course, we know who Clive Davis was to Miss Aretha Franklin. Now, with this film, I am and have been waiting to see Jennifer Hudson portray Miss Franklin, but it's more so, just because, she has that essence that Miss Franklin has, that voice, that spirit, that, beyond the gods as heavenly songstress thing, that God-given gift. She has that. She kind of has that same thing that she has. So her playing her is like a no-brainer. But I do also know that that movie is going to be PG-13. And so is this series. Now, we do all know, if you are familiar with Aretha Franklin and any of her backstory, if you've watched any documentaries, then you know that Miss Franklin's life, honey, is the tea. There is so many, conspiracies, so much gossip, so many other things surrounding her as an artist outside of just her voice. Other celebrities, other men, the Sam Cooke of it all, her father, the preacher, everything. There's so much story to be told. And it's as if she led such a tumultuous life from a very young age. I don't see us getting the just that we need from this series or from that movie with them being PG-13. And no, I do not want to see violence on screen. No, I do not want to see her predicted in a negative light. I am just saying, for us to get to that meat and potatoes, we need that higher rating. But since we didn't get that, I feel like that movie, as well as this series, only really gave us surface level. Not saying that it's bad, but I really wanted some more. I really wanted to really dive deep into her life, but I don't think we're going to get that on either end. But that's okay. Let's talk about this series. Now, getting into this series, we follow Aretha, from being a young girl all the way to her being an older woman. We follow every aspect of her career, some aspects of her marriages, her family dynamic, as well as her children, and her, kind of being the genius behind her producing and her writing and her making those incredible songs that we know her for. Now, getting into Miss Cynthia portraying Miss Franklin. Now, this one right here, how do I say this? This is her second attempt, from what I know, of portraying a Black American iconic woman. First we had Harriet, and now we have this. Man, I'm glad I ain't had no channel then. I had such discrepancies with the Harriet portrayal. And as well as with this one, not saying that she did a bad job, but it's just so different when you have a Brit portraying a Black iconic person here. It's some of the Brits make it very clear that they don't identify with, issues here and things like that. I kind of touched on these things when I discussed Judas and the Black Messiah and Daniel. I hope his name is Daniel, because honey, they was reading me for Phil because I got his name wrong. Cool, yeah, Daniel. Old dude from Get Out playing Fred Hampton. There just always seems to be a little bit of a disconnect. And there could be, wonderful actors and actresses. But if that dynamic isn't there to where they can really, really identify with this person and have, in the past, instead of, kind of, oh, I'm getting this part, let me, try to familiarize myself. Who doesn't know who Aretha Franklin is? But you just really get that essence when you are here and you can identify with certain things that happen in this movie as far as, Blackness, certain, African, it's this, we're depicting, 50s, 60s, 70s. It hits different when it's someone, it hits a little different. And, after that Harriet, child, it always seems like a need to overcompensate. Because, of course, we have to, hide that accent. And some actors really, really do a really good job. You couldn't, know otherwise. And she didn't do a bad job, but just in the delivery of, lines and certain, there just always seems the need to kind of overcompensate and just be extra Black, if that makes sense. But she did her thing. She did. Now, speaking of Miss Cynthia doing her thing, Cynthia sings pretty much all the music in this movie. I'm going to assume that they weren't licensed to, use certain things from Miss Aretha, and they didn't get the family, so yeah, they probably didn't sign off on that. But if you weren't aware, she is a beautiful singer. She has a wonderful voice, and she did a great job with these songs. I will never take that away from her. I heard a little bit of her voice, and it was a lot because she was always singing. And Bad Time at the Royale, the movie that came out not too long ago. And her being on Broadway in the, I believe it was The Color Purple. I kind of watched some of that too. She has a wonderful voice. Now, it's no Aretha. That's like hard to touch. But with her renditions, it didn't really take away from the series at all. Her singing the songs herself and trying to, give us that Aretha essence, it worked here. I really enjoyed her singing the songs. I really enjoyed her renditions. She did an awesome job there. Now, getting into Miss Aretha's childhood, the young lady here is a first-time actress. I do believe that this is one of her first roles, and I do feel like partly she was placed here just based off of her voice. She does, an okay job with delivery, but, with some child actors, they just clearly need some more training and some more time. I felt like she took me out of a few scenes because it just was a little botchy. I just felt like she needed a little bit more experience, but her voice was beautiful and she did, a good job of what she had. But getting into the role, you see that our young Aretha, is longing for a mother, that figure, and that she admires her dad, and that she's, throughout her childhood just trying to find her place and find her voice, and that she really finds that in the church. But we also see that she's a child that is exposed to way too much. Not only is she trying to find her voice, but she is taken out on tour, on a gospel tour with her father, who pretty much just only sees her, as his pride and joy and his prodigy. And she winds up, in really suspect situations when she realizes that maybe her preacher father isn't quite who she thought he was, and winds up, being assaulted at a party and pregnant at the age of 12. Now, getting into a young Aretha being pregnant with her first child at the age of 12, I really didn't like the way it was handled here. I don't know if it's because I'm a mom or if it just bothered me, but I'm not saying in any way that I wanted to see, a young child who was assaulted, be scolded. But not only was she kind of put in a compromised position due to her father taking her out on tour, and she's, being placed in all these mature situations, with these godly folk who are, enjoying the nightlife when they're not on stage, praising Christ. But for her to be pretty much, assaulted at a party and taken advantage of, and the way that it's found out, from the dad, and the way that it's handled moving forward throughout the series, it just was so light and really just inconsistent to me, because I was just like, that's it. We don't really see, anything being handled, anyone being prosecuted. We just see, it happened, and it just wasn't dealt with. It was just like, oh, 12-year-old's a mom now. And not only is she being made to be, a mother and being placed in these mature situations, but you never actually see her mature as a child would, when they are, you've given birth, you've been pregnant. We don't make any progress from that. It's just like throughout the whole film, she still remains 12 and acts 12 and really unaware, and just, it's really just unassuming. I'm like, I just wanted some more with that, and I wanted to see some more interaction between her, the dad, and just a little bit more intel into that situation, because it was all kind of like, okay. Now, the show does not start off with her childhood, but it is, kind of shown in flashbacks, and we go back and forth just to see how she was raised, and her performing as a child coincides with her and how she performs as an adult. We really start off with her bond with her father and her bond with Ted White, her husband. Now, her dad here, Mr. Courtney B. Vance, was my favorite here. He was the highlight of this series for me. I don't know if it's because, he's the most seasoned actor, but I do love him. I always love anytime he portrays anything. Most of the time when you see Courtney B. Vance in something, it's a throwback or in, a certain era, because he just brings that essence from that era. And boy, did he bring it playing her dad, this preacher. Now, he is not, just the everyday preacher. No, he is a preacher. He is godly, but he's also, a partier, a smoker, a drinker, and most of all, a cheater and a womanizer. There is so much of his story surrounded with him cheating and being a womanizer. This is like the essence of this character. And I was just like, man, like, if this is the surface, I would hate to know the truth. But you get into him just not only, playing favorites with his children and the daughter, but him not being able to consistently maintain relationships, not only with Aretha's, the other children's mom, but with any women in general. He's all about his ministry and, the way things look. But, behind closed doors, we are a totally different person. And we're going to get towards, the end, certain things that were happening. And I'm like, we're not going to talk about that? So we just really not going to talk about that. Now, apart from him being a womanizer, you see that he invests so much time into Aretha from childhood all the way on up, and kind of controls every little aspect of her career, and, kind of projects what he sees her as, what he sees her singing, and, her, what she should be doing. So much to, her discontent as a child. It's like she just never really had an opportunity to just be a child, because she spent so much time just being placed in the forefront. You see right away that she really even didn't want to be in the forefront singing, being this wonderful pianist. She was, behind. She was like really shy. She just, she didn't see it for herself. So it took a lot for her to get that courage up to be the singer that, we saw later. But apart from that, we also get into Ted White. Ted White, Aretha's first husband, who we see, I'm like, is this consistent? Because if you read and you look online and in Wikipedia and, certain little docs, it says that she was introduced to him through Della Reese, at a party. We do know that she is married to Ted at the age of 19. But you see here that he is introduced to her as a child, and he's, with Diana Washington, and he's, just a party goer, grown ass man, and that kind of bothered me. But okay. you get into the back and forth and the push and pull that she has with the man in her life, her father, and Ted White, her first husband. And you see how controlling and opposite that they are, but pretty much that they are almost the same person, in that she kind of met her father, a whole different rendition of her father. Now, getting into Cynthia's portrayal of Aretha, we get into so much of her music and just get to see how much of a genius she is and how much she contributed. And it's almost like she is, she's so in control of everything in her life that's involving her music, but everything outside of that, no. That goddamn Ted White, like the actor portraying Ted White, he did such a good job, because I just wanted to punch Ted White in the face. And y'all know how somebody has to be for me to want to punch him in the face. You see that, I don't know, it just was like, Houseway, she is just such, a queen and so respected and so in control. But when it comes to her husband, who we see right away is very controlling, abusive, doesn't contribute anything to her career, but I mean, he did, co-write some songs, but was more of a hindrance from, what this series portrays than really helping her. So when you see her just soaring and being so in control in all of these other aspects of her life, but when it comes to her husband, it's just not. And it's just almost like, what? Like, how can we, I guess, it's power of a man, honey. How can we be, all those things? But when we come to our husband, who always, I was like, if he give her one more damn drink, always there with a drink in his hand, who is a pimp. Because at first I thought they was just saying, because you hear countless times in this movie from her siblings, the people in her band, her dad, he's bringing you down. He's a bad influence. He's bringing you down. He's, taken away from you as a woman. Whole pimp. And she knows these things, but she's reveling in it. She's, I'm not sure how old he was when she met, but she was 19 years old when they married. So you can just, who the hell are you at 19? Who I don't know who the hell I was at 19. You don't know who you are. So you can see where that dynamic would happen for her to be so controlled and abused by this man and just feeling like she needed him. But I just was like, it was so many moments where I was just like, So after we get into, Miss Aretha's music life and her persona being a contradiction with the men in her life surrounding her, we get into the music. We spend a lot of time on the music and a lot of time with the band. We get a lot of, her creative process. Each episode is the name of one of her songs, and we kind of get into kind of what she was going through at the moment to maybe write or, create that song. And that was awesome. Aside from that, we spent a lot, I do mean a lot of time with Ted White. I felt like we spent so much time on Ted White. We were about, 4 episodes in of an 8-episode series, and we were like still on Ted White. I was like, I just wanted, some more of just, simply Aretha doing Aretha things. But we also get into Aretha wanting to inject activism into her music and her being, wanting to be a voice and not just wanting to be another singer. Now, we do see that it took her some time to find her voice and be able to do the kind of music that she wants to do and not be put in a box. Her dad wanted to, put her into the gospel box. The producers, prior to her finding, ones that work for her, wanted to, put her in the more of the jazz box. And, she wanted to be soul. She really wanted to be able to create and do whatever the hell she wanted to do. And we know all too well that Miss Franklin was, perceived as a diva. She's up there, with the Diana Ross and so many others. I really wanted to see some more of those diva aspects of her life. They are kind of sprinkled in there with the way, she discussed some of the artists. Like we hear her mention Natalie Cole. We hear her, kind of discuss Lena Horne and, kind of on some, they are, their beauty is getting them where they need to be. I'm not, quite there. We gotta work, a little bit harder because we don't have, that European essence of beauty, but whatever. I'm about to make this shake. We see a little bit of that, but I wanted some more because I feel like Aretha was, talking some shit. But after we leave Ted White and her dad in the push and the pull, we get into her really wanting to be active and portray certain things through her music and wanting to speak to the audience and to the times and things going on, up at which we get into Martin Luther King. Now, when we got into Martin and everything that was going on and activism and coming, speak at rallies, and you also see the push and pull and the kind of jealousy part on her dad, like, he was trying, to create movements, and because this was a really big preacher. He had his own, when he wasn't sleeping with nobody and drinking, he had his own, ministry and tours and albums and all of these things. But you see from early on, he uses Aretha because she pulls in that audience to his ministry and gives him validation that he just can't get as a preacher. Not that he wasn't revered, honey, because he was. Why? I don't know. But he was. He was, and Aretha, put that cherry on top for his church. But when we get into Martin Luther King and her showing up and all those things, they were trying to, kind of allude to some romance. And I was like, what? We do, see them conversate about the movement and the march and, him thanking her for, using her voice as she wanted to use her voice to, pull people together and contribute to these Black movements. We kind of got into, did y'all feel that? Did y'all feel the romanticism going on with her and Martin? And I just didn't know what they were trying to get it there. Like, we know the whole thing with Martin and Coretta and the women. Aretha, you too? Okay. Now, getting into other inconsistencies, we spent a lot of time with Miss Franklin just trying to please and get approval from other people. And it just seemed like who she was within the story didn't coincide with who she was in her music and as an artist and as a singer. You see her, you get very the essence of strong, Black, gifted. See what I did there? You see all these things, like everything, that a strong Black woman should be. But when we, get behind closed doors, she just wanted so much approval, especially from her father. She has so much admiration for her dad and wanted his approval on everything. She cared about what the reporters thought about her, about what the fans thought about her, the way she was perceived in the public, in articles. And she just wanted to come off and appear so perfect to other people. And it was just like, damn, Miss Franklin, it's okay. It's okay, girl. Just be yourself. All we need is that. Whatever else somebody else got to say, who could give a damn, girl? You just sang the shit out of that song. But you see that is not all that mattered to her. She really, really cared about other people's opinions. And that was just really shocking to see. I would have never thought that of her. Now, in talking about, her caring, how others perceived her, judging from this series, it doesn't seem like she held that same standing with her family. Now, right away, even in childhood, as we're introduced to the sisters, and you can see how that dynamic could happen with her being perceived and received and displayed and carried as the favorite child. The sisters are just put off as, singers who are jealous and, never met their mark in their solo careers, never amounted to an Aretha, and just couldn't find their footing. And we do see, some sisterly bond and, little things here as well as the brother, but everything was just surrounding Aretha in her career. They were only there to enhance her as an artist. So everything aside from that, as well as, Aretha the mom, Aretha, the sister, Aretha, the aunt, that was non-existent. And if we go based off of this, it just seemed like she didn't have time for anything involving her family or even, her own children outside of her career. We maybe see 3 to 4 scenes with her and her actual children. We do, know that she had 5 sons, but they just kind of appear and disappear. They don't really have much dialogue here. everything is just, and it just, I'm like, it, but we do know that, she is a performer, and she, as a performer, especially on that ladder, you can't really be, all things to everybody, especially your children. You see, but it was just like, damn, like, does she see those kids at all? Like, no? Okay. And just getting back to the sisters, it was just like, damn, some of the things here were done. Like, when we get towards, the ending and, that questionable decision, I would have never known. I love the actor who was playing Curtis Mayfield, because, honey, he was giving me Curtis Mayfield. But when we get into her stealing that role, that soundtrack from her sister, and it was just like, damn, Aretha, like, that's how she was out here moving. It's so many instances in this series as far as her sisters are concerned, especially the younger one, with how she is, not really there to support, not really there to help, to lend that eye or that writing pen that she could as a sister. It was just like, girl, she really ain't. Okay. And we can even say the same for her husbands. Now, judging from this, if we just go based off of this, in relationships, Aretha was a very complicated woman. Now, we are introduced to 3 relationships with Miss Aretha. We are introduced to, 3 different husbands, Ted White, Glenn Truman, and her, well, he's not her husband. They were in a relationship, but child, we gonna get into T.I. Like, what? Why they keep putting T.I. and stuff? Leave T.I. alone. Leave him over there with his acting. But if we get into those relationships, it just was like, you could see just as a woman, she was kind of unsure about what she wanted and where her loyalties really lied as far as family and having a thriving music career. We already, discussed Ted White and all his shortcomings. You want a drink, baby? Let me get you a drink. I spent some money. Let me get you a drink. But she spent so many years with Ted White. So when we get into her finding someone new, Mr. T.I., who is very pro-Black, into, being active, even more so than she was, and was trying to get her to, display that not only in her music, but, hitting the streets. And you see her speak about Angela Davis and bailing her out of jail and just being really down for the cause and the Panthers and all those things. And, speaking out. When we get into just goddamn T.I., like, when I saw T.I., y'all, I was just like, well, I just didn't know who he was. I was just hoping for a brief second that it was, a cameo situation. No, this was far from a cameo. We got a lot of screen time with T.I. and him being, expeditiously. He kind of took me out of it. Now, I will say that as far as T.I.'s acting, other than ATL, this is the best that I've seen him in a very long time. But there are so many instances where he is supposed to be serious, and it is just like, ugh. But if we're just going off of the relationship, you see that she just really didn't know what she wanted. And, we have so many inklings. We didn't see anything from him that, displayed that, he wasn't a good man, especially outside of Ted White. It was just like she just, found a great guy, and, we are happy for her as an audience. But when we get into the relationship and her kind of pulling away and her decision making, it was just so inconsistent, because you see that he gives her so much push to, move forward, be in control of her career. And you see her kind of go against the establishment because she's not getting credit as a producer and a writer. And she's kind of, left in the forefront. It's just the artist, and her, just really pushing. See her give that Black Power fist at the party. Like, there were so many, set up situations for her to look really pro-Black and just really in control. It was just like, it was cute, but it was just like, okay. But when you see her really dive into that, and it was just like, we just gonna say fuck this man, okay. She just really didn't know what she wanted. And then when we get into Glenn Turman, Colonel Taylor, and their marriage, I was really hoping to really get really into the depth of their marriage, because she really looked the happiest when she was married to him. It was so short-lived, honey. I just really wanted to spend, I was like, that's it. Like, we literally spend a few scenes with him, they get married, and we never see him again. And we're just, going to assume that they are divorced. I really wanted more time with all of that. But, you know, whatever. But it does a really good job of, you know, showing us that she really didn't know what she wanted in a relationship and in a marriage. And she spent a lot of time with a tumultuous, you know, marriage that, you know, when she got into a really good relationship or a really good marriage, everything else trumped that. So she really couldn't give her all, which led her to, you know, lose her husbands. Now, it also seemed like when we got further into the story, the flashback of, you know, her childhood and her dad and her family just seemed to get more and more just really dramatized and just, I don't know. I just didn't favor the flashbacks after so long, and it felt like we didn't get enough. And we spent a lot of time, you know, with the dad, of course, womanizing and, you know, going, you know, cheating and all these things, borderline abusive. We see him slap a woman. We see him, you know, show up really drunk a lot of times. And we also see a lot of his life and as well as Aretha's life on this tour. Now, we do get into her actual birth mother and just, you know, kind of trying to figure out why she isn't there. We hear, you know, multiple stories. But when we actually get to the story, this made me mad. This made me mad. We get into him from the very beginning being a cheater and a womanizer. And it's alluded to, but when we actually get to the story and we find out that her dad cheated on her mom, and while she was pregnant with Aretha, he got another woman pregnant. Now, when we find out that this woman was a 12-year-old girl, and it's just chalked up to, you know, something to be prayed away in a mistake he made as, you know, a godly man and a husband in a wayward moment. I didn't know what to think at that moment, because I was just like, this is what we're going to chalk this up to. This is what we have been hiding this entire time in this movie, is that this is what happened. This is what, you know, tore the family apart, ran the mom off, though she, you know, knew about the cheating. This was, you know, kind of the straw that broke the camel's back, that not only did he cheat, but he impregnated a 12-year-old girl. And how it was kind of brushed aside and never mentioned again. And we just see, you know, the family kind of crumble and the mother pass. Now, also getting towards the end, we do get, you know, a little bit more of her childhood. It just got so just all over the place towards the end, especially with the flashbacks. We get into her out of nowhere being pregnant for a second time at, I believe, 15. And it just was, nothing was explained. Things were just happening. And you see her dad, you know, Trump, starting her, you know, music career in the church over her getting her education and graduating from school. And, you know, his whole agenda with, you know, seeing that and this is her calling, we don't really care, you know, get them books out of here, which was just so tasteless. It was like, come on. I love the beginning of the series more so than I love the end. I feel like the beginning was more consistent, meaning, you know, maybe episodes 1, maybe to 5. Now, 3 on up, I just, we needed more time, and they needed more opportunity to tell a little bit more of the story to make things flow cohesively. It felt like things started moving really, really fast just for her to get to, you know, older 70s, 80s Aretha. I felt like the series should have been, you know, split up a little bit more within the decades for us to kind of, you know, spend time. It's maybe 3 episodes in this decade, so on and so forth, up until we get to, you know, the end. But with us spending so much time with that Ted White relationship, with the dynamics of her father, so much, you know, time with the backstory, just when we got 2 moments towards the end, it just got really, really rushed. Like her marriage to, you know, Glenn, and her, you know, stealing the Sparkle soundtrack from her sister, and her, you know, her Las Vegas show, and her father. It just got real. But after we, you know, finished with her father being a womanizer up until the day he passed, I was like, honey, when is he gone? Like, you... After that, in the marriages, and, you know, the sisters, and her, you know, We go through her whole stage of, just getting older and, still being revered, but still wanting to be that top artist. We get to the 80s and we are introduced to, I was going to say Clive Barker. Clive, y'all. And he is, you can tell that he was involved. He is just like a godsend in this movie, in this show. I was just like, oh, go make sure he's portrayed, properly. Not only did the actor portraying him look immaculate, every time they need an actor to portray Clive, it's always, like spot on. He's just like sent in when she's in a place of, kind of not losing her fame, but kind of losing her footing with the new generation of singers and, music changing and things coming in. And he comes in and, just takes her under his wing, and we get into all, those 80s songs. I'm not a fan of 80s Aretha. I didn't really listen to those songs, but we get into those and how those were and their friendship. And now the choices towards the end, we needed more time. When we get to the Las Vegas show and her finding out that her dad was shot. Now, he was shot in the knee and I believe the groin. For him to be shot in the groin, I was like, oh, that was either a scorned woman or somebody's husband. But he is shot and he is, in a coma and he never gets up. So we spent a lot of time just with her not wanting to leave her father's side and being made to understand that she doesn't really know who she is outside of her dad. There were so many instances in this series that just really displayed as if Aretha didn't know who she was outside of man in general. You have Ted White, who's leading her in the beginning. Then you have the T.I. character who comes in and is kind of, maneuvering her to, try this, go here, speak on that. Let's read these books. And then we also have, the producer who comes in and helps her to find her voice. And, once you find Aretha and she like has a light bulb moment and goes, and plays the piano, and you just have so many. I'm just like, at what point did she just know who she was on her own? It seems like outside of her music and her creating music, she did not know who she was as a woman. And even with the music, you still see, little whispers here and men. And I was like, I just want to know who she was outside of these men. I don't want to spend so much time on her and these, these relationships, even though these are a part of her life. But if this is who she was, towards the end and how that crumbling happened with her marriage and her just not going home and wanting to stay by her dad's side. And, he moved a little bit because I'm here. And there are so many moments in this movie with her just completely dismissing her family's feelings and emotions and kind of chalking stuff up to, well, whatever, like, what do y'all want from me? And it's just like, damn, Aretha. This series had moments where it just really made her look like a bitch. And it was just like, damn, Aretha, like this, okay. Now, getting into the end, up until this part, I felt like the film did a very good job, with costuming and, the hair and capturing Aretha's essence and her looks throughout the years from, her childhood all the way up to the 90s when we, last see her performance. The choice to add pounds on her and do, a makeup effect to make her appear bigger. Why? I did not like that aspect of the series. Now, I was waiting for certain parts of the series for them to, with age, because, she had, such a fluctuation in size and, just throughout the years period, not up until her old age, just period in general. Why wait until the end to just instantly give her pounds when we, stay consistent, with her being the same size, not really adding anything, just to throw all of that on her towards the end and, in the neck area, in the makeup choices. It was just like, why? That really took me out of the story towards the end. I just didn't know, because I was waiting for them to, maybe play around with, costume choices to make her appear bigger than she was, or to, give us some depth there as far as her size as a woman. But we wait all the way to the end, because remember, we have been through the 80s, 60s, we wait all the way to the end and it's just instantly big Aretha. I really didn't like that, and that took me out of the story. And especially when they didn't really invest a lot of time in aging any of the characters. With the movie speeding up the way it did and us just jumping to the end after the father's passing and, you know, the siblings being dead, the father being dead, her and her living sister visiting the gravesite and ending on her Grammy performance of the opera. There were many parts of this series that just left me unfulfilled. I wanted some more. You see a lot in the series of things being mentioned as to say, oh, look, there's, you know, Aretha doing, you know, everything she says she was going to do. She's creative. She's always trying new things. But it just felt so unearned. Her kind of mentioning, you know, oh, girl, you know, you can do opera. Who, me? I could do opera? I could never do that. That's a different in her ending with the opera and, you know, the Pavarotti of it all. I just was like, So as you can see, I did have my discrepancies with this series. I did enjoy the beginning more so than the end. Of course, I felt like it was rushed. I felt like the beginning was way more consistent. I felt like a lot of the times in this series, we spent a lot of time on other aspects of her life when I really wanted to see other things. But they did, you know, make it a key to hit key points, you know, certain performances, certain, you know, aspects in her life, her being, you know, crowned, you know, the Queen of Soul, and her really underneath being a battered woman. The series was just, you know, unfulfilling. Was it entertaining? Yes. But would I watch it again? No. Do I recommend that you watch it? I mean, I would. It didn't, you know, seem like a waste of time. It did keep me entertained for the most part. I did love Courtney B. Vance. Hell, he's the one needs a damn series. He needs a life. C.L. Franklin, he needs a story. There is so much there. There is so much in the stories and just her life in general that I feel like was left out. And for some reason, I feel like they're going to be conveniently left out of the film also. But you guys, tell me what you think. If you did watch this, please drop down and tell me what you thought about the series, if I left anything out. If you haven't, drop down and tell me why you didn't. I know why you didn't. But, you know, just drop down and let's get the conversation going. I appreciate you guys for watching. I see you next time. Bye.